Hey there, I wanted to talk about sentient weapons in fantasy. With me is my editor. His name's Grub, he's a bearded dragon. I love him very much. He's the littlest of my dragons. So, sentient weapons are a feature in science fiction and fantasy. I'm a fantasy writer. I have two weapons right now. In my first book, The Demon Struggle for His Infernal Soul, Splinter inherits the mystical weapon, Nightsinger. It's a double-edged sword that has a shrieking bat's head on its hilt, engraved on its hilt, with a blue stone in its mouth, and bat wings on either side of its head, right? My main characters they're bat demons called Chiropterans, right? They are the Howler clan, Splinter Howler, Shatter Howler, and Malakarm Howler. Anyway, whoever holds this weapon, Nightsinger, is the Earl of Batsmark, which is their ancestral land. They inherited it during what's known as the Rapture Wars, where demons were at war with the Angels of Erd, who had colonized the planet. Well, whenever the Earl of Batsmark dies, he goes to great lengths to make sure that he dies with Nightsinger in his claw, because Nightsinger will absorb his spirit, which will then reside within the sword. Nightsinger's main attribute is that it's demonic runes that are engraved in its metal in a way where they're intrinsic to the sword. They allow the user to channel the power of the night, which in my Demonland series is a measurable force. There are a lot of things that are not true forces in our world, like death and the night, which I've decided factor into my magic system within my book, my fantasy series. You know, these are important questions to ask yourself when you're writing. But needless to say, Nightsinger is mystical, and the full breadth of its power has not been explored yet. Its forging is also a mystery. I haven't told the story of how Nightsinger was forged. These are questions for you to ask yourself when you write your own fantasy story. You know, now, the point of this video is, of course, sentient weapons, right? Thor's hammer in the Marvel comics, Mjolnir, is sentient. Usually it's sentient. In the movies, it's sentient. You know, you see Stormbreaker throwing a tantrum in Thor Love and Thunder when Thor is mooning after Mjolnir, right? And Mjolnir itself seems to have feelings. In the comic books, Mjolnir is actually forged with the Mother Storm by Odin, which means it has the fury of a cosmic storm, which obeys Thor because, well, sometimes, because he's the god of thunder. Later on, during the Donny Cates run, Mjolnir is destroyed and reforged with Odin's consciousness at its heart. That's cool. With Odin's consciousness, it will talk. And in fact, Mjolnir talks to the Jane Foster Thor. So your mileage is going to vary on that kind of thing, right? One of my favorites is Elric of Melniboné. Here's a picture of Michael Moorcock's Pale White Duke. He has a character that is referred to as the Stealer of Souls. Its name is Stormbringer. And whenever he draws it, it's going to kill someone and it's going to suck their soul. Sometimes even Elric's friends and lovers. Stormbringer is a very tragic weapon, and those stories are hard fucking core. They're from the 70s when fantasy was a lot more raw. And that's what I'm trying to evoke with what I'm writing. Stormbringer doesn't necessarily suck people's souls. It's not vampiric. But when it kills people, it does feed on their death, which is, again, a measurable thing in Demonland. It does also appear in my third book. There are 3 books right now. The Demon Struggle for His Infernal Soul, The Cannons of Maryland, and, of course, The Devil's Computer. Splinter is a secondary character, but he gets a pretty cool battle scene in that book. It's like when Spider-Man shows up in Daredevil. It's like, well, Spider-Man's got to do something cool, right? Anyway, the other weapon appears in Book 2 and will be in Book 4, which I am currently writing. Book 4 is called The Dead Souls of Maryland and is, in many ways, a direct follow-up to this book, although it is the 4th in the series. In Book 2, we follow Shatter Howler, who is Splinter's older brother. Shatter is what's known as a ghoul trooper. He's like a Marine. He's an elite warrior who is dropped out of the demonic flying machines, which are known as sky urchins. And it's his job to break a fortress called Fort Sunstrike. Well, he ends up having to battle what's known as a fledgling. Fledglings are the only angels that remain in the world of Demonland, which is the planet Erd. They are the descendants of the angels that colonized Erd. And, they have a fraction of their ancestors' power. And oftentimes will have mystical weapons that were handed down. In Marcus Blackwing's case, he has the mystical weapon Asdeev. It's a tremendous mace, almost too big for him to wield, but it fills him with indescribable power when he wields it. And, when he battles Shatter at the end of The Cannons of Maryland, we'll see the nature of that power, that angelic power. What happens when a demon picks up a weapon that hates demons? What happens when that weapon has a will of its own and wants nothing more than to wreak havoc and destruction, Can sentient weapons go crazy? Can they lose their focus and their mind? See, Splinter's weapon, Night Singer, it doesn't talk to him. None of my weapons talk. I think that's too far, you know. In The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett, which is the first Discworld book, there's a sword that talks in a high-pitched, squeaky voice, because he's a rascal and he's nutty and he's having a laugh at your expense. Right? My thing is that mystical weapons are cool. You know, the Green Lantern's special ring, which turns his willpower into weapons. Right? King Arthur's Excalibur, you know, a mysterious magic sword, which he pulls from a stone, which fills him with the divine right to be the king and the power to smite the Britons' enemies. You know, Mjolnir, Odin's spear. They're cool. They're awesome. And I like when they're a character all of their own. So, you know, again, the forging of Night Singer, I haven't told that story yet, but it's something I'm thinking about, and it's something you should think about when you write your fantasy story. What do you think about sentient swords and fantasy literature? Leave a comment, or don't, but do leave a comment. I'd like to hear, and Toothless would like to hear, and my evil possessed clown doll Sprinkles would like to hear as well. So, and do check out my books. They're all listed at demonlandbooks.com. I have 3 of them, with a 4th coming out hopefully this year. So, love your demons. Write poetry, make art, and Ave Satanis.